Well, hey, before we jump into the sermon today, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to our elders. Thank you to our stewardship team. Thank you to all the volunteers. Thank you to those who serve in our children's ministry to make sure that that next generation hears the gospel. Thank you for being a church that majors in things that matter rather than the minors. See, every church is just one generation from being gone. When any time that one church with one generation misses the primary mission and gets stuck in the minors, that's why churches fold, disappear, and they're not there any longer. See, we've been given the calling to present the gospel, to be able to change lives where heaven and hell is what is on the line. People's eternity is in the balance, and you guys have been a part of that. Get that, and I want to say thank you because it matters more than you realize. You know, today I've had so many just young college students come up because it's their last Sunday as they graduate, and they're sharing about where they're headed. And as I had just a young man share just a little bit ago, he's like, Barry, thank you. He says, I've only talked to you one time in the last 4 years, but this church has changed my life. And we just talked about him launching rather than leaving. And see, for those who are getting ready to graduate and leave, please know that what you've learned here, what you've been equipped with here, how you've been loved here, please take that with you. Find another church family. Get involved. I encourage you to find your church before you even find your apartment. I mean, that's how important it is. And yet so often we just kind of let it happen. There's not going to be a single boss out there that says, how are you doing spiritually? That's just not going to happen. You're going to get motivated and you're going to be challenged because you're all of a sudden go, I can finally get a dog. I can finally get a new car. I finally got an apartment. And all these things are going to pull. And then God becomes a second thought. And then somewhere, when you start having kids 10 years down the road, you might start thinking about it and you've lost a decade. So launch out of here and go be the difference makers. Be the ones who change this world. Take Jesus with you wherever you go. Well, church, thanks for being who you are. See, we've been talking about a series here called A Race to Rest. And this is important whether you're graduating, whether you're here. See, we're a society of people who just run, 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 run. And then we go, why don't I hear God? Hey, why don't I have the spiritual relationship that I see so-and-so has? I wonder why I don't feel like I once felt. And as we sprint through life, notifications blasting us constantly, shows continually running, blaring music or whatever it may be, there's always something. And in that noise, we've ceased to be a culture that listens to God. So we talked last week in the 23rd Psalm about how God restores the soul. We kind of kicked off the series with talking about soul exhaustion in all the noise of life and how we seldom slow down enough to even hear our own souls, let alone God. And today I want to take the next step where, see, the truth is God doesn't just say, come to him. He says, come to me. And then he says, lay down your burdens. You got to take another choice, another step. See, so often we're like, okay, I came. Okay, it's like saying, get over here and talk to your brother and apologize. Well, we come over, but that doesn't mean your heart's in it or anything else. And God has a different way from this world. There's so much in this world that he has to offer. And he invites us to know him. To be his hands and feet in this society, in this world, not just to exist and take up air, buy a house and get a new car, figure out what it is, build up a 401k. Those are just small goals. in light of the eternal goals that he has for us. Now, here's the thing. We're carrying a lot, and I want to talk about the burden that we all carry. See, we have burdens that we carry that we're not designed to carry. So before we talk about how we lay things down, I want to talk a little bit about the what and the why. I'm going to start with Psalm 55, and then we're going to come back to it at the end of the sermon as well. So give your burdens to the Lord, and he will take care of you. You know, it's interesting how we just kind of fly through words. We don't think about them very often, and we don't think about the meaning behind them a lot of times. But this idea of burdens here, we're like, oh yeah, stress, a little bit of pressure, Well, it's actually deeper in that and what it means. You know, in the Hebrew, there's this idea of it's a load, it's a weight, and it's pressing down. And I know that many of you have something whispering inside you. Yeah, there's a weight that is pressing down on me, and for some of you, it's been all the way since you were a child. Something that's happened, or the pressure of mom and dad, or maybe it's generational pressure. Maybe it's just how you kind of think naturally, and it's just gotten more and more. And some of you, it's because of maybe a new job or just feeling like you're not enough. But the good news is this. God didn't ask you to carry that burden. See, he put another word right in front of burden that we sometimes miss. And it's real important here. I want to look at the root of this. I don't often go into the root, but on this it's important. When he says give, the idea isn't this polite little, okay, here you go, God. Just a gentle little. The idea is to hurl, to cast, and with force get rid of this, cast off. You know, the crazy thing is that's the same thing that Peter tells us in the New Testament. It's not just an Old Testament idea. Peter tells us this in 1 Peter chapter 5. It says this, so humble yourselves under the mighty power of God, and at the right time he will lift you up in honor. Now here's the word give. Now in the Greek, exact same thing, to cast off all your worries and cares to God. Why? Because he genuinely cares about you. So, David says it. Peter says it. So, hear the inspired word of God. God's saying it. You were not meant to carry all those burdens. I know for some of you, you got a boulder of anxiety on your back. And some of you, it's parental pressure coming down, and some of you are the parents putting pressure on and thinking that you have to have perfect kids and you don't have them. And some of you, it's like, I got married and he's my best friend, and yet now we're struggling and we don't know how to handle it. And maybe it's financial burdens, maybe it's a work stress. For some of you, it's not stress that you've caused, it's even stress that someone else has put upon you. And then you just go, man, my soul is tired. Well, let me tell you, I'm not preaching at you. I'm preaching with you. This is a series I've needed. Yeah. We all carry things we're not designed to carry. And my heart bleeds for this community. And yet I can't save this community. Only Jesus can. And every once in a while, I start to try and hold on to things that I can't carry, and it's up to him. You know, when I started ministry back in my 20s, I was so naive, sincere, but sincerely naive. Hey, I was like, here we go, ministry. We're going to win the war for Jesus, and this is so great. And I'd seen how other people had done ministry, and I'm like, we're going to change things. This is going to be great. You know, ministry is harder than it appeared. And that's a theme of life that maybe some of you will identify with. You know, when I was a young guy in my 20s, I remember listening to old guys. And I'm like, why do these old guys talk about how their body hurts and how they're this? And I'm like, why do they talk about all this stuff? And then now in my 40s and 50s, I get out of bed and I'm like, oh, dang, I'm kind of hurting. Oh, my knees are bugging me. And experience, I understand a little bit more. You know, when someone would talk about their marriage, I remember before I got married, I was like, oh yeah, I love Marcy. It's going to be grand. We love each other. I mean, we've been, our story's been written in the stars. I just know it. You know, I was love struck. It's going to be great. And you know what? that girl thinks different than me. She argues different from me. She likes things that I just don't even understand. And then she looks at me like there's something wrong with me. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And yeah, you know, marriage is the most wonderful thing I've ever experienced. And it is by far the hardest thing I've ever done. Parenting. Oh, man, I remember seeing some of my friends' parents, and I'm like, man, they're jacked up. And whew, when we have kids, it's gonna be different. And then I had kids, and I'm like, help! See, there's a common theme that happens in life. If you're in your 20s, I hope that you hear this. There's something that happens only in life through this incredible tool called humility, where you learn to surrender, and then God becomes your teacher. And I want to challenge you, learn that lesson sooner rather than later, because the longer you fight this, the longer you hold on, and I'm going to do it my way, the more that he has to break you down so he can build you up. You know, the scripture in 1 Peter, I read that earlier. Let me just hone in on verse 6. So humble yourselves under the mighty power of God. He doesn't just say, you stupid, do you realize you can't do that? It's not that. He's like, humble yourself under what? The mighty power of God. Put yourself in a place of protection. Understand who you are, who he is. And when you figure that out, it just changes things. See, Peter is connecting humility to releasing burdens. Why? Because pride keeps us from carrying what Jesus died to lift for us. You know what pride does? Pride says, I can do it myself. I don't need help. Hey, we don't need to tell anybody else about, hey, this is just my stuff. Don't worry about it. I got this. And how many people in this room have struggled with that? All of us at some point. You know what humility says? Hey, I know I'm not designed to do it all. Hey, I know I don't have all the answers. Hey, I need God. I need my family. I need my friends. I need the support called the body of Christ. You're not designed. This is not about whether you're going to go on the journey. It's a matter of surviving the journey, not carrying burdens that you're not designed to carry. Let me illustrate this. Hey, Marcy and I love to hike. We always have. When we first got married, we're both hikers. We both love the outdoors, and we go out to Colorado, and she can hike all day. I can hike all day. No problem. But you put a 30-pound plus backpack on that little woman, that's a little bit different. She's like, I got this. And we took off on a hike, and we got back in, and I'm a real great planner, so we got lost and didn't find our place and had to camp in the middle of nowhere. But then the next day, we were so tired, she's like, I can't do this. And on the way back, I had to carry her backpack, so I'm a good pack mule. I'm designed differently. And so I was able to carry hers and mine. Now, that wasn't weakness on her side. It was just she'd been carrying something she wasn't designed to carry. Now, can that girl go? Absolutely. Just a few years ago, we decided to go on vacation. We went to the Grand Canyon. She's like, I've always wanted to see it. I said, great. I've always wanted to hike it. And she went, uh-oh. And I'm like, we can do this, honey. And so we actually went and we hiked the whole Grand Canyon. Now, this time, the difference, we didn't cut it short. Started before daylight, ended about an hour after dark. Hiked all day long. That woman never slowed down. She's tough as all get up because she let me carry the pack. Now, she did clarify after last service, I did carry some of my water and my lunch. And so that girl was able to go all day long because she understood what she's designed to carry and what she's not. Now, here's the thing. Humility is not weakness. Humility is simply trust. Throughout Scripture, it's where you put your trust. See, what does God do for those who are humble? He lifts them up. He strengthens them. He encourages them. What does he do with those who are proud? Bible's real clear. He resists the proud. What does American culture value? Submission or pride? Oh, we're full of pride. We're full of it, and you know it. We struggle with this whole idea of submission. You know what? He resists the pride of our heart because it allows our hands to be so holding on to worthless things that don't really matter. It keeps us too full to even be able to grab his hand, to be able to reach out, to follow him. You know, when it comes down to it, I know you've heard that humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking less often of yourself. I want to change it. I don't know for sure where I got this originally, but this is, for me, just straight from God. Humility is not just thinking less of yourself, it's thinking more of God. Do you see the difference? It's not just, if I just stop thinking less of me and I just try and empty myself, I got to replace that with something. I want to think more of my God. I want to raise the level of who I think about. I want to put him in his proper place, because what is that? That's when you humble yourselves under the mighty power of God. That is humility, where you say, God, I can't handle this, but I know that you can. Here the thing is fear is masquerading as pride. I know some of you, you're not pushing back on God because you're so rebellious with God. You're just refusing to admit that you're afraid. Afraid of letting go, afraid of losing control, afraid of just surrendering and what that might cost you. Please understand, surrender is not losing control. Surrender is giving control to the one who never loses it. And he's one we can trust. You cannot give to God what you're still gripping with white knuckles. So when you're wanting so desperately for your kids to be with God, when you're wanting your marriage to be solid, when you're wanting your finances, whatever it is, if you're holding on to that with all that you have, I'm not so sure that you're submitted to and giving to God versus just holding on to it. See, I found that I have to be real careful what I drag through life with me. You have a lot of stuff you're dragging along with you, and you don't even realize it sometimes. See, go from season to season. We drag our brokenness, holding on, trying to change. You know, and yet Jesus wants to teach us a new way. That's where we started, was Matthew chapter 11 in this series, where he said, let me teach you, and you'll find rest for your souls. That's a hard thing for us to do, because it means doing it a different way. So many of us are like, hey, I want to come to Jesus. Yep, I go to church. I want the peace that passes all understanding, and I want to do everything the way I've always done it. Does that make sense? No. Does that work? Not at all. Today, I believe Jesus is inviting you to something personal, where he's asking you to lay down your burden, and you got to decide what that is. Now, I want to bring in the tool that he invites us to use. It's called prayer. It's the practice of laying it down. It's not just the practice of telling him what I want, gimme, 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 gimme. It's the practice of laying it down. So if humility opens up our hands, you know what prayer does? It places the burden in God's hand. Let me read to you Philippians chapter 4. It says, don't worry about anything. Instead, now that's an important thing. I want to stop and I'm going to come back and finish reading. He says, don't worry about anything. Now, it doesn't just say stop it. It doesn't work very well. You got to replace that with something else. He says, pray about everything. Tell God what you need. And what does he continue to do? He says, and thank him. Thank him for all he's done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything you can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and your mind as you live in Christ Jesus. When you start to go, okay, here's what I need, and I'm going to begin to thank you, and I'm going to see your experience, what you've done in my life all around me, and I'm just going to be thankful for that. Then God's peace starts to enter in. See, prayer is so misunderstood of just gimme, gimme, gimme. Prayer is not informing God. It's actually unloading. And I know some of you want to unload to a friend, you want to unload on your parents, you want to unload on whoever it might be, and there's times we need a lightning rod friend, but too often we run to them when we ought to be going to God. God is the only one that can handle the full burden of that. And so let me just challenge you to make sure that you're placing things at the feet of Jesus. That's where this whole idea of kneeling before God in prayer can be so powerful. Worry is carrying the burden yourself, and prayer is giving that burden into God's hand. I love what Corrie ten Boom said. She survived by way of Nazi prison camp, and once she said, worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows. It empties today of its strength. Did you catch that? Let me say that again. Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. In other words, tomorrow's going to have pain. It's going to have suffering. It's going to have hurt. That's going to happen. That's not going to necessarily change all of that. What worry does is you lose today. See, you start carrying a burden that you're not designed to carry. What happens if you've ever carried something that starts to get heavy? What do you start to do? You start to kind of slump over time. You start to get down. And I see people do this as a way of life, not just physically, but I see it emotionally. I see it mentally. I see it spiritually, where anxieties and depression and worry and caustic attitudes and bitterness starts to come in because we start to get weighed down. And all of a sudden we start to just get crushed under the weight of what we're carrying. And God is wanting to, we've forgotten what it means to stand up, to look. There's a reason I do in any Bible study I lead. I always want to start out with a simple thing. What's your God moment? And it's constantly trying to train my brain and their brain to look for where is God at work, because he's always at work. God is always moving. God is always doing. There are friends around you. There is family who cares. There are people who are loving. There are good things happening. And if we don't watch it, what happens is we get so crushed down that all we start to go, I'm just a realist. No, we just stop looking at God. Oh, I'm just the way things, this is just the way things are. And we're crushed under a burden that we're not designed to carry. And I want to challenge you to get your eyes up out of the mud and start looking for some of the good, because what happens is we miss today what could happen in our marriage because we're worried about yesterday and we're worried about tomorrow. You know, we miss out on today what's happening with our kid that's right there with us because we're upset about and regretting yesterday, and we're fearful of what's going to happen tomorrow. We miss out on today right when we walk by someone we could have ministered to, God could have used us, because we're suddenly, all the noise. And let me just ask you to slow down. See, when you put that weight at the feet of God, Philippians 4:7, let's go back. I just want to emphasize the word guard. He guards our heart and our mind because we've brought it under the power and the authority of God that we can't carry. That is a military term. We're to stand watch, to protect from invasion. See, God will guard our heart and our mind. His peace doesn't just calm you. He stands guard over you because now you're putting the proper authority in place where it needs to be. Worry wants to invade your life and steal every moment from you. Peace of God and understanding who is in control, he stands at the door and says, not today. So God has a promise here where he will carry what you surrender. I want to come back to Psalm 55. He says, give your burdens to the Lord and he will take care of you. Not he might take care of you. Not he'll think about taking care of you. Not if you get all your stuff together, he'll be by your side. It just says he will. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to fix everything the way I want. It doesn't mean everything's going to turn out the way I think it should. But he will take care of. That is, he will sustain, he will hold, he will support, he will strengthen. That's the essence there. He doesn't always just take the burden off, but he does strengthen the person underneath. That's where that's the idea of a yoke that he carries with us. But some of you have been carrying that burden so long you don't realize it's not healthy. You know, I want to imagine just packing a suitcase. I know we're all different in our packing. You know, we plan a trip together, and Marcy and I are very different. About a week ahead of time, sometimes even earlier, she starts planning everything. She'll get all of her stuff together. She'll organize it out, and we have up to 50 pounds that we can put in that suitcase, and hers is like 25, 30 pounds. And to me, I'm just like, well, the airline's making money on her. And so she's like, no, I'm getting rid of stress. She gets it all, every outfit organized. I'm a little different on that. I'm like, why worry about that? About an hour before we leave, I frantically grab a suitcase and start just jamming all kinds of stuff in there. Several pairs of shoes, several things. I could go for about a month when I pack for a week. And there have been a few times that we get to the airport and, oh, shoot, it's past 50. Honey, can I put it? And she's like, oh. She'll let me put a few things in her suitcase. Here's the thing. Some of you are going through life and you're frantically stuffing stuff in a suitcase, and it's not even stuff that you ought to be taking with you. You're stuffing in there all this stuff, and, old wounds and expectations and regrets and responsibilities. You're stuffing in there secrets you don't want anybody to know, and you're about ready to let it bust out of your suitcase. And Jesus says, hey, let me take care of that. Let me get that. I got you. You're like, no. He's like, you're dragging a burden through life that you're not designed to carry. But you're going to have to do some things differently. And that's why we've been practicing silence. And I know some of you are like uncomfortable because you're like, I talked to someone this last week. I said, hey, how's that been going? Have you practiced it? I did it twice and then I got busy. And I was like, don't feel bad about it. That's twice more than you did it the week before. That's a good news. We got to move, and it's a practice. It's something that you're doing. And so let me just challenge you. It's time to continue this practice. I know some of you, your phone's been buzzing, your watch has been buzzing, and you're wanting to look at the notifications. You're thinking about what's happening next. I mean, some of you are going like, we got to get out of here. We might miss brunch, and we got this coming. Well, we got another party this afternoon. We got a graduation. Take a breath. Before we rush out of here, I want to practice with you. This has been something that's been really healthy for me in the last month as we've gone through this series. And so together, I'm going to sit back. We're going to be quiet for a minute, and I know that's awkward. If this is your first Sunday, you might go, oh, wow. It's okay. I'm not going to put you on the spot. I know sometimes it's scary to slow down because all of a sudden God might reveal something that you don't really want to look at. But don't worry. He's right there with you, not to backhand you, but to actually do this. So let's just practice listening for a bit. God, what do you have to say to me?